Corporal Craig Brown's skull cracked against the holding cell wall as the Benzite interrogator's uppercut connected, but the Marine only spat blood and laughed. "Is that all you've got, motherfucker? I've taken shits that hit harder than you." 3 days ago, Recon Team Zulu went dark on the hostile jungle world of Benz 4. No distress calls, no emergency beacons, just dead silence over comms. Fleetcom dispatched Craig, the team's point man and an elite UEF raider, to find them. He never made the rendezvous. The Benzites snatched Craig before he even hit dirt, stripping his Hercules Mark IV exo-armor and slapping him in an energy cage aboard their frigate. The only equipment spared was his skin-tight UEF undersuit. Now this hulking insectoid freak wanted the location of Zulu's fallback point, and the gloves had come off. Emir, the 8-foot-tall mantis ant abomination, brandished his lower set of arms. "Where is your base camp, imp? Shall we slice away flesh until you speak truth?" "Fuck off, bug boy." The monster's beady compound eyes flashed. "Then we shall employ our telepathic resonance scanner to pluck the information from your primitive ape brain, but I prefer more refined methods first." He powered on a glowing cube. Voltaic energy crackled along its surface. As the neural agony inducer floated towards Craig's face, the Benzite's mandibles clacked with sadistic glee. "Let us discover your endurance threshold for pain." The fluorescent light stung Craig's eyes as Emir's 2 lackeys, Zek and Kaz, shoved him onto the Benzite frigate's observation deck. A massive screen stretched before them, displaying a planet's surface. Craig's heart sank as he recognized the human dwellings dotting the landscape. It was Benz 5, a UF colony. "Watch closely, Terran filth," Emir hissed, gesturing to the live feed. "Witness the might of the Benzite Dominion." The screen lit up as a swarm of warships, at least 50 strong, descended through the clouds. They hovered ominously over the colony's meager defenses, a mere 100 Marines tasked with protecting 10,000 civilians. Craig's stomach knotted. This wasn't a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. Plasma bolts and incendiary bombs erupted from the Benzite fleet, raining hellfire upon the outmatched humans below. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and Craig watched helplessly as colonists scattered in terror, cut down by merciless alien warriors. The Marines fought valiantly, but it was a hopeless last stand against the Benzite onslaught. "Look at them flee like the pathetic prey they are," Emir cackled, reveling in the slaughter. "Every last one of your kind on Benz 5 will be exterminated, Corporal, and then we will burn the next colony, and the next, until humanity is nothing more than a forgotten footnote in Dominion history." Tears of rage blurred Craig's vision as a group of Benzite soldiers gunned down children. Innocent kids, no older than his own daughter back on Earth. Something inside him snapped, a primal fury boiling over. With an anguished roar, Craig lunged at Emir, chains rattling. The Benzite warlord stumbled back, mandibles clicking in surprise. Zek and Kaz reached for their weapons but hesitated, unwilling to risk hitting their leader. Craig didn't waste his advantage. He looped his restraints around Emir's neck and pulled with all his might, the metal links biting into the alien's carapace. Emir thrashed and hissed, his superior strength slowly overpowering the human, but Craig held fast. He'd make the bastard pay for every life he'd taken, even if it killed him. Zek and Kaz leveled their plasma rifles at the struggling pair, shouting for Emir to move so they could get a clean shot. Craig shifted, using Emir's bulk to shield himself. A stray bolt sizzled past his head as the guards opened fire. Zek and Kaz turned their weapons on Craig, but the human was ready. His hand shot out lightning quick, snatching Emir's plasma pistol from its holster. Before the guards could fire, Craig squeezed off 2 shots, the searing bolts finding their marks in the center of each Benzite's compound eyes. The guards crumpled, dead before they hit the deck. Craig pressed the pistol's barrel against Emir's temple, as the warlord clawed frantically at the chains, crushing his throat. "Release codes for the restraints now," Craig growled. Emir hissed defiantly, even as his face turned a sickly shade of green. "Never, you filthy ape! I'll see you dead first!" Craig's face hardened. "Wrong answer, bug boy." The plasma bolt seared through Emir's skull, and the Benzite commander went limp. Craig untangled himself from the corpse and staggered to his feet. He needed to move fast. The observation deck's door was sealed, but a sustained burst from the plasma pistol melted through the locking mechanism. Craig kicked it open and stepped into the corridor, sweeping for targets. 2 Benzite crewmen rounded the corner, mandibles clicking in alarm as they saw the armed human. They fumbled for their sidearms, but Craig was faster. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, his UEF close quarters training taking over. A vicious elbow strike caved in the first Benzite's face, and Craig used the alien's body as a shield, absorbing the wild shots from its companion. Shoving the limp corpse aside, Craig dispatched the second crewman with a point-blank headshot. More Benzites would be coming. He needed to find a way off this ship. Following the signs for the hangar bay, Craig fought his way through the corridors, leaving a trail of broken Benzite bodies in his wake. The hangar was a hive of activity, with ground troops loading into dropships bound for the surface of Benz 5. Craig slipped behind a stack of supply crates, eyeing the nearest transport. The Benzite pilot was just climbing aboard, his back turned. It was now or never. Craig sprinted across the hangar floor and leaped into the dropship's rear hatch, tucking himself into a cramped storage compartment. The hatch hissed shut, and the dropship lifted off, the pilot unaware of his hidden passenger. As the transport accelerated towards Benz 5, Craig gripped his stolen plasma pistol and steadied his breathing. He was headed right into the heart of the invasion, with no backup and no plan. But he was a UEF Marine. He'd find a way to make the Benzites pay for what they'd done, even if it was the last thing he ever did. The dropship shuddered as it punched through Benz 5's atmosphere. In the cramped storage compartment, Craig tensed, gripping his stolen plasma pistol. It was now or never. He kicked open the hatch and burst into the cockpit. The pilot, a young Benzite named Zor, spun around in shock. His compound eyes widened as he reached for his sidearm. Craig was faster. He jammed the plasma pistol against Zor's head. "Don't even think about it, Bug," he growled. "You're going to land this ship now." Zor's mandibles clicked nervously. "Where?" "Fort Valor, UEF Garrison HQ, and if you try anything cute, I'll splatter your brains across the windshield." The Benzite swallowed hard and nodded. Understood. Craig kept the gun trained on Zor as the dropship descended towards the besieged human compound. Plasma bolts and tracer rounds crisscrossed the smoky sky. Explosions rocked the ground below. The ship touched down 100 meters from Fort Valor's outer wall. Craig smashed the pistol butt into Zor's skull, knocking him out cold. He stripped off the pilot's armor, the chitinous plates barely fitting over his smaller human frame. Disguised as a Benzite trooper, Craig hit the release for the rear hatch and charged into the chaos. He sprinted across the cratered killing field, plasma sizzling past his head. Artillery shells pulverized the earth around him. The air reeked of ozone and burned flesh. He reached the fort's perimeter, his lungs burning. A UEF sentry popped up from behind a barricade, rifle leveled at Craig's chest. "Hold it right there, Bug." Craig tore off his helmet. "Whoa, easy, friendlies." The sentry hesitated. "Identify yourself." "Corporal Craig Brown, Raider Team Zulu, authentication code Whiskey Tango Foxtrot." Recognition dawned in the Marine's eyes. He lowered his weapon and waved Craig forward. "Jesus, Corporal, am I glad to see you. Captain Hawkins is going to shit a brick." The sentry led Craig through the battered compound. Wounded Marines lay groaning on stretchers. Medics rushed about, triaging the casualties. Ammo crates were stacked haphazardly beside smoking piles of Benzite corpses. They found Captain Hawkins hunched over a tactical map, barking orders to his officers. He looked up as Craig approached, his weathered face breaking into a grin. "I'll be goddamned. Corporal Brown, back from the dead." He clasped Craig's hand. "We thought Zulu team was lost." Craig shook his head grimly. "I'm all that's left, sir. Benzites grabbed me during insertion, just broke out of their brig." Hawkins' eyes narrowed. "What's the situation up there?" "We're in deep shit, Captain. At least 50 enemy capships in orbit, enough firepower to glass this whole continent. The color drained from Hawkins' face. He turned to his comms officer. Get a priority message to FleetCom. Tell them we need immediate reinforcements and orbital support. Otherwise, Ben's 5 is finished. He glanced back at Craig, his jaw set. In the meantime, grab some ammo and a fresh set of armor, Corporal. If this is going to be our last stand, I want my best man on the line. We'll show these Benzite bastards what Marines are made of. Craig snapped a salute. Aye, aye, sir. Let's send 'em straight to hell. In the battered command center of Fort Valor, Craig laid out the intelligence he had gathered aboard the Benzite ship. Captain Hawkins listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. 50 capital ships, he muttered, enough to glass this whole damn planet. He turned to his officers, a steely glint in his eye. We can't let that happen. We need to strike at the heart of their fleet, take out their command and control. Craig stepped forward. Sir, I have an idea. That dropship I captured, we could use it to infiltrate their flagship, the Orcs. A small team could sneak aboard, make their way to the central computer core, and blow it to hell. It would cripple their entire fleet. Hawkins considered the plan, then nodded grimly. It's a long shot, but it's our best chance. Corporal, you'll lead the mission. Pick your team and gear up. You launch in 30. Craig saluted. Yes, sir. He gathered his hand-picked squad in the armory, 5 of the toughest, most skilled Marines in the garrison. Among them was Sergeant Mike Thompson, Craig's closest friend and brother-in-arms. Crazy plan, bro. Mike grinned as he checked the charge on his plasma rifle. Just like old times, huh? Craig clasped his shoulder. Wouldn't want anyone else watching my back. Let's give these bugs a good old-fashioned ass-kicking. The team boarded the captured dropship, Craig taking the controls. As they lifted off, he glanced back at his men, their faces grim and determined beneath their helmets. Listen up, he said over the comm. We're about to fly straight into the hornet's nest. The Orcs is crawling with Benzite troops, and they'll be gunning for us the second they sniff out trouble. But we're UEF Marines, the meanest, toughest sons of bitches in the galaxy. We're going to carve our way to that computer core and send these bugs back to whatever hell they spawned from. Ura? Ura? The Marines chorused, the dropship echoing with the force of their resolve. Craig punched the engines to full burn, rocketing towards the looming bulk of the Benzite flagship. His heart pounded as they drew closer, the alien ship's hull bristling with plasma cannons. At the last second, he wrenched the controls, sending the dropship careening towards the Orcs' hangar bay. Alarms blared as they skidded across the deck, plowing through a cluster of startled Benzite technicians. The Marines leaped from the hatch, plasma rifles blazing. Benzite soldiers swarmed from all sides, screeching war cries. The hangar dissolved into a vicious close-quarters brawl. The bulky Benzites were strong and fast, but the Marines were faster. Craig dropped 2 with headshots, then whipped around to slam his rifle butt into the mandibles of a third. Push forward, he roared, clear a path. They fought like demons, blood and ichor spattering the deck. Craig and Mike fell into their old rhythm, covering each other's backs, moving as one. They cut a swathe of destruction through the Benzite defenders, advancing deck by deck, corridor by corridor. But the deeper they pushed into the ship, the fiercer the resistance became. Heavily armed Benzite shock troopers rushed to block their path, hissing and spitting. The Marines took cover behind bulkheads, trading blistering volleys of plasma fire. "Frag out!" Mike yelled, lobbing a plasma grenade. It detonated in a blinding flash, vaporizing a cluster of Benzites. But more surged forward, trampling the smoldering remains of their comrades. "Fall back," Craig ordered. "We need to regroup." The Marines retreated, piling into a side passage. Craig slapped the door controls, sealing the bulkhead behind them. "Check your ammo and charge packs," he panted. "We can't be far from the computer core now." He glanced over at Mike, and his blood ran cold. His friend was slumped against the wall, a blackened hole burned through his chest plate. A plasma bolt had punched clean through, searing his heart. "Mike!" Craig screamed, dropping to his knees. He cradled Mike's helmet, searching desperately for any sign of life. but the sergeant's eyes were glassy and still. Grief and rage consumed Craig, hotter than any plasma. Mike was gone, just like that. Another good Marine lost to these goddamn bugs. He surged to his feet, snatching up Mike's rifle. "On me," he snarled to the others, his voice shaking with fury. "We finish this. For Mike. For everyone these bastards killed." Tears stinging his eyes, Craig hit the door controls. The bulkhead slid open, revealing a phalanx of Benzite troopers. They opened fire, plasma bolts stitching the air. Craig charged, bellowing in anguish and anger, Mike's rifle blazing. His squad followed, roaring their own battle cries. They ploughed into the Benzites, rifles flashing, combat blades slashing. It was a whirlwind of blood and death, a primal unleashing of pain and loss. And then suddenly they were through. The last Benzite fell, and the squad stood panting in the eerie silence. Before them loomed a massive blast door, the entrance to the computer core. Craig hacked the controls with shaking fingers. The door groaned open, revealing a vast chamber pulsing with eerie green light. Towering server stacks hummed and flickered, the beating heart of the Benzite war machine. "Plant the charges," Craig ordered hoarsely. "Let's send this thing straight to—" "Impressive, human," a cold voice hissed, but ultimately futile. A hulking Benzite emerged from the shadows, flanked by a dozen elite guards. His chitinous armor was jet black, inscribed with glowing sigils. "I am Zax, second in command to the late Emir," he clicked, compound eyes glittering. "And you have walked into a trap." Craig leveled his rifle, teeth bared. "Shut up and die, bug." Zax chittered a laugh. "You truly believed this was about Benz 5? You're even more foolish than I thought. This entire invasion was merely a diversion, a feint to draw your pitiful defenses away from your true vulnerability. Earth." An icy dagger of fear pierced Craig's heart. "What?" "Even now," Zax hissed, "the bulk of our fleet is entering your solar system, preparing to unleash Armageddon upon your homeworld. Billions will burn, and there is nothing you can do to stop it." "Like hell there isn't," Craig snarled. He keyed his comm. "Light 'em up." The Marines opened fire, plasma bolts ripping into the Benzite guards. At the same moment, Craig hurled his last plasma grenade into the server stacks. The explosion was deafening. A chain reaction of blasts tore through the computer core, the servers detonating like dominoes. Zax screeched in rage, lunging for Craig, but a flying piece of shrapnel caught the Benzite in the throat, nearly decapitating him. Alarms shrieked as the chamber collapsed around them. Flames and debris filled the air. Craig grabbed the nearest Marine. "Back to the dropship! Move!" They ran, dodging explosions and falling wreckage. The Zorkesh shuddered and groaned, the dying flagship consumed by a series of catastrophic detonations. Bulkheads buckled, corridors collapsed. The hangar was an inferno of twisted metal and choking smoke. Somehow, incredibly, the dropship was still intact. The Marines piled aboard, Craig leaping into the pilot's seat. He fired the engines and wrenched back the controls, the dropship blasting free of the disintegrating hangar. The Zorkesh exploded behind them, a miniature sun birthing in the darkness of space. Debris pelted the dropship's hull as Craig pushed the engines to their limit, desperate to outrun the expanding fireball. And then they were clear, streaking away from the dying flagship. Craig sagged back in his seat, gasping for breath. He keyed the comm with a trembling hand. "Fort Valor, this is Corporal Brown. Mission accomplished. The Zorkesh is destroyed, along with that bastard Zax, but we lost Mike. And Benz 5 was never the real target. They're heading for Earth." There was a crackle of static. Then Captain Hawkins's voice filled the cockpit. "Understood, Corporal. You and your team just bought us a fighting chance. Without their flagship to coordinate the fleet, we might just have enough time to get a warning to Earth, shore up the defenses. Rendezvous back at Fort Valor. We've got a long fight ahead of us." "Copy that, sir," Craig said wearily. "We're on our way." As the battered dropship limped back towards Benz 5, Craig gazed out at the stars, his heart heavy with grief and grim determination. Mike was gone, along with so many other good Marines. But their sacrifices wouldn't be in vain. Craig would make damn sure of that. Earth needed her defenders now more than ever. The Benzites were coming, and this was just the opening salvo in a war for survival. It was a war Craig intended to win, no matter the cost. For Mike, for humanity. And heaven help any bug that stood in his way. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.